Hi, I'm Old Norse specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford. I am soon to offer a new course on, ticketed through Eventbrite, but taught through Zoom. In addition to my Old Norse language classes, that's called the Original Sources of Norse Mythology, in which you don't have to read in Old Norse, but you do read quality modern translations of the Eddas, poetic and prose, and you get a chance to go through those texts with me and have me explain, places where there's uncertainty in the translation, or something where, the Old Norse text reflects this exact wording, which no translation can exactly get, this sort of thing. I want you to appreciate what those original sources really say. So what I'm going to do right now is look at one of the most famous scenes from Norse mythology and how we might go through it in that class as a little preview. So the story of how Tyr sacrificed his hand to Fenrir is told in only one place, Snorri Sturluson's Prose Edda, in the first part called Gylfaginning. And it's worth noting that there are never titles like God of War or anything like that used in these original texts. These God of, Goddess of titles are really our modern inventions, occasionally inspired by weird side remarks that Snorri makes in the Prose Edda, but never by anything in the Poetic Edda. So I'm just going to kind of read through this as I see it in the original Old Norse text and tell you what I see there and where I think there might be difficulties. So the Aesir gods fed the wolf at home. This is the wolf Fenrir, who's been born to Loki, and Angrboda, a anti-god woman, anti-goddess. And Tyr alone had the courage to go to him and give him food. And when the gods saw how much he grew, the wolf grew every day, and all prophecies said that he would be fated to injure them, then the Aesir came up with a plan, and they made an extremely strong chain, which they called lathing, and they carried it to the wolf, and they asked him to test his strength against that chain. And the wolf did not think that was too much for his strength, and let them do as they wanted. And the first time that the wolf kicked against it, the chain broke. So he freed himself from lathing. Then the gods made another chain, twice as strong. The literal expression is holvu sterkara, literally half again as strong. In modern Icelandic, that does mean twice as strong, so it probably means the same thing in Old Icelandic, which they called dromi. And they asked the wolf again to try that chain and said he would be very famous for his strength if such incredible products of smithing couldn't hold him. But the wolf thought that this chain was very strong, and also that his own strength had grown since he had broken lathing, and it occurred to him that he must put himself to some risk if he would be famous, and so he let them put the fetter on him. And when the Aesir considered themselves ready, the wolf shook himself and struck the earth with the fetter. So I think the image was to have is that he snaps it so hard that it kind of flails around and slaps the earth as it falls. And struggled strongly at it, kicked against it, the fetter broke so that the pieces flew far away. And so he freed himself from dromi. And that has since become an expression, says Snorri, that to free oneself from lathing or to get out of dromi, that's when something is particularly difficult, or particularly difficultly accomplished. After that, the Aesir gods feared that they couldn't bind the wolf. Then Odin sent the one named Skirnir, the messenger of Freyr, down into Svartalfaheim to some dwarves. So notice, it's dwarves who live in Svartalfaheim. So presumably dwarves and Svartalvar, black elves, dark elves, are the same thing, or one is a kind of the other. I've long subscribed to Ármann Jakobsson's idea that Elf is a very generic name for supernatural beings that are less than gods but also not evil, and that dwarves are just a kind of elf, therefore. Anyway, sent him down into Svartalfheim to some dwarves and had them make a chain called Gleipnir. It was made of 6 things. The sound of a cat, probably meaning the sound of a cat's footfall, because obviously a cat meows, and the beard of a woman, and the roots of a mountain, and the sinews of a bear. Probably, I've always thought, because bears look like they're sort of walking carpets, it's hard to see, the definition of the muscle underneath that. And the breath of a fish and the bird's spit. I guess they think that birds don't spit. All right, let me pause for a quick second to give you a quick word from my kind friends and partners at Grimfrost. I'll be right back and give you the rest of the story. All right, and so this is Snorri's narrator. High one or equally as high or the third. They're all just manifestations of Odin talking to Gangari, the guy who's inquiring about these stories. So, and though you already know these tidings, this news, you will, although you don't already know this news, so you don't already know the story about the wolf, you will find true proofs that I'm not lying to you. Basically saying that because I'm telling you something true, I can't be telling you something else that's false. Interesting manipulator tactic, but that suits Odin. You will have seen that a woman doesn't have a beard, and there is no sound from the leap of a cat, and there aren't roots under the mountain. And my faith knows it. Kind of funny, this is a very Christian phrase, my faith knows it, but that's because Snorri swims in a Christian culture. That it is equally true what I've told you, though there are some things that you can't test. And then Gangleri said, I can certainly understand this is true. I can see these things which you have used as examples. But how was the chain made? The High One said, I can tell you well. The chain was like narrow, thin, and soft like a thread of silk, but so hardy and strong as you will now hear, When the chain was brought to the Aesir gods, they thanked the messenger, Skirnir, well for his errand, and then the Aesir gods went out into the water, the lake, which is called Svartnir, really 2 words that mean dark, Olmer being particularly associated with evil beings, into the little river island, Holmer, the source of many people's last names, which is called Lyngvi, and they summoned with them the wolf, and they showed him the silk thread, and they asked him to break it, and they said it would be somewhat stronger than it would seem given its thinness, and they handed it to each other and tried it with their hand strength, and it didn't break, but they said that the wolf would break it. And then the wolf answered, so it seems, I look upon this thread, this word that I don't think is attested anywhere else, but it must mean something like thread. I look upon this thread as though I won't receive any glory from it, even if I break asunder such a soft band. But if it is made with cunning and art, right, deception, magic, even though it seems little, maybe, then that band, that chain, thread won't come onto my feet. And the Aesir god said that he would quickly break apart such a soft silk band when he had earlier broken big iron fetters. And then we transition to direct speech. This often happens in Old Norse. But if you can't break this chain, then you won't have to fear the gods. We shall free you. The wolf said, if you bind me so that I cannot free myself, thol skolith there's well. So this verb skolith, also I don't think is attested anywhere, but something like lie, probably. You lie in such a way because I will be late to receive help from you. Very often in Old Norse, you say something will happen late that will actually happen never. So like, I'll never receive help from you. You won't help me. I am uneager to let this chain come onto me, but rather than have you mock my courage, let one of you lay his hand in my mouth as a pledge that this is done falseless, without falsity, without deception. But each of the gods looked to each of the others, and they thought that there were now 2 problems, and no one would put his hand forward before Tyr put forward his right hand and put it into the wolf's mouth. And when the wolf kicked against the chain, it hardened, and the harder he fought against it, the stronger was the chain. And then everybody left except Tyr. He lost his hand. When the Aesir gods saw that the wolf was completely bound, they took the end of the chain, which is called Gelgia, and they drew it like under a big flat stone that's called Gjol, and they fastened that stone far down into the earth. Then they took a big stone and they threw it even further down into the earth. It's called Thviti, and they had that stone as like the anchor stone. The wolf opened its mouth fearsomely and struggled around a great deal and wanted to bite them. They put into its mouth a certain sword. The hilt is at his bottom gum, and the point is at his top gum. That is his mouth prop, the thing that props his mouth open. He groans horribly, and saliva runs out of his mouth. That is the river called Hope, and there he lies till Ragnarok. And Snorre uses the term Ragnarökr, twilight of the gods, which is different from the term Ragnarok, fates of the gods, events related to the gods, which is what you typically see in the poems of the Poetic Edda, other than Lokasena, which uses Ragnarökr, twilight of the gods, like Snorri does. So if you want to get deep into these original sources, consider taking my class that starts October 27th. Otherwise, of course, keep watching the channel. I will continue to do some deep dives into myth from now, well, time to time, pretty often actually, because I post 2 videos a week. And for now, thank you to those of you supporting the channel on Patreon, Ko-Fi, YouTube channel memberships, trying to get that stuff set up. Those buying the books, and those past, present, and future taking the Old Norse and myth reading classes. For now, from beautiful Colorado, I'm wishing you all the best.